I never planned to fall in love at work. I'm just here to do my job, I told myself every morning. But then she smiled at me across the office floor, and that promise broke quietly. Good morning, she said one day, leaning over my desk. Morning, I replied, pretending my heart wasn't racing. That was how it always started. Small words. Simple moments. Big feelings I never said out loud. My name doesn't matter as much as what I felt. I was the kind of guy who listened more than he spoke. I believed silence showed respect. I believed patience proved seriousness. I believed if I waited long enough, feelings would be understood without words. She laughed easily. You're too quiet, she teased once. I like listening, I said. To what? To people, I replied. She smiled at that, and I carried that smile with me for days. Every lunch break felt like a chance and a risk. Are you coming to eat? She asked. Yeah, I said too fast. She noticed. She always noticed. We talked about small things. The printer hates me, she complained. It hates everyone equally, I joked. She laughed again. That laugh became my weakness. At night, I replayed our conversations. Why did she look at me like that? Why did she ask if I was seeing someone? Why did she get quiet when other girls talked to me? I wanted to ask her everything. Instead, I asked nothing. You should just tell her, my best friend said one evening. We were sitting on his bike parked outside a tea stall. She's your crush, not a secret mission. I don't want to make things awkward, I said. He shook his head. Silence doesn't protect you. It just delays the pain. I ignored him. The next day she walked in wearing blue. Does this look okay? She asked. You look nice, I said. Just nice, she laughed. I smiled, scared of saying more. I told myself I was being mature. I told myself love didn't need rushing. I told myself she would understand one day. But understanding doesn't grow in silence. Doubt does. One afternoon, she leaned closer than usual. Why are you always so calm? She asked. Because I think too much, I said. About what? About saying the wrong thing. She looked at me for a long second. Sometimes the wrong thing is saying nothing, she said softly. That sentence stayed with me. Still I stayed quiet. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into hope mixed with fear. Every time she smiled, I felt brave. Every time she pulled away, I felt small. My friend warned me again. You're building a story in your head, he said. What if her story is different? I didn't answer. Then came the moment that broke my patience. She walked past me without smiling. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, she said quickly. It wasn't yeah. That night I couldn't sleep. If I lose her without trying, I'll regret it forever, I thought. The next morning I looked at my reflection. Just be honest, I whispered to myself. I walked into the office with a decision burning in my chest. Today I would tell her. Today silence would end. I believed honesty would bring peace. I didn't know honesty was about to destroy everything I believed about love and trust. I woke up that morning feeling like today would change everything. My heart was beating faster than usual, and my hands felt clammy, like I'd been holding a secret too long. I looked at myself in the mirror. Just say it, I whispered. Just tell her how you feel. At work, I rehearsed words in my head over and over. I like you. I've always liked you. I can't keep it in anymore. Every variation sounded ridiculous. Weak. Clumsy. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Today had to be the day. I walked into the office cafeteria, scanning for her. She wasn't at her usual table. My stomach twisted. Was she avoiding me? I forced myself to breathe. I'd waited too long to worry about nerves. Then I saw her. Well, not her exactly. Her friend, the one she was always with, was sitting by the coffee machine. She looked up as I approached, her expression nervous, almost guilty. Hey, she said softly. Hi, I replied, my voice catching slightly. There was a pause, a hesitation I couldn't understand. I thought she might be joking, but her eyes were serious. I need to talk to you, she said, fidgeting with her mug. Sure, I said, trying to keep my tone casual. She took a deep breath, then said, You shouldn't keep hoping. I blinked. What do you mean? She looked down, twisting her fingers together. She isn't interested. Not in that way. I mean, her voice faltered. I'm sorry. I know it's hard to hear. I froze, my chest tightening. I had expected rejection, yes, but not like this. Not delivered through someone else. Not with this indirect, almost polite distance. So she doesn't want to me? I asked carefully, afraid my voice would betray me. Her lips pressed together. It's complicated. She doesn't see you that way. I'm just telling you before it hurts more. I wanted to ask why she couldn't say it herself, but the words stuck in my throat. My mind felt blank, even as my heart shattered in slow, sharp pieces. Okay, I muttered. Her eyes flicked up at me for a moment, hesitant. I know this isn't easy. I'm sorry. I wish things were different. Thanks, I said, though it felt hollow. She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with my chest tight and my stomach sinking. I wanted to call after her. I wanted to yell. I wanted to tell her friend to stop being the messenger. I wanted everything. But all I could do was stand there, feeling small. I wandered to my desk, trying to make sense of the conversation. My mind spun. Not interested? But why didn't she say it herself? Later that day, I was passing the corridor near the lounge when I overheard voices. Her voice, sharp and frustrated, and another whispering. I froze behind the doorframe. I didn't want to face him myself. I heard her say. What? The other voice replied. I sent you because I couldn't do it, she admitted. The world tilted. I felt my knees go weak. I leaned against the wall, breathing unevenly. My stomach churned. My respect for her, all those months of silent admiration, crumbled into shards of disbelief. She didn't reject me herself. I wanted to run away. I wanted to scream. I wanted to collapse somewhere dark and quiet. Instead, I stood frozen, listening. I know it's wrong, she said, voice trembling. But I couldn't face him. I couldn't. I felt the sting of betrayal not just from her but from the situation itself. Every small smile, every shared joke, every glance I had cherished suddenly felt hollow. I had been patient, silent, respectful, and it hadn't mattered. Later, my best friend noticed the change immediately. You look like hell, he said, tossing a paper cup at me as I slumped into the chair beside him. I found out something, I muttered. What? She didn't tell me herself. Her friend, she told me I should stop hoping. Wait, what? He leaned closer, frowning. She sent her friend? That's messed up, man. I know, I said quietly. I feel small. Humiliated. I don't even know how to look at her now. Don't let it get to you, he said. You deserve honesty, not tricks. Anyone who hides behind someone else isn't worth your pain. I know, I said, but my voice was distant. My heart was still pounding, my mind still replaying her words, her avoidance, her failure to face me. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Every time I saw her walk past, I felt my chest tighten. Every smile directed at someone else stabbed like a knife. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus. I kept repeating it in my head. She didn't reject me herself. In the quiet moments, I remembered her laughter, the easy conversations we had shared. The teasing, the small glances, the shared jokes that had meant everything to me. Had any of it been real? Or was it all an illusion carefully preserved to protect her feelings while breaking mine? Her friend kept glancing at me throughout the day. I could see the regret, the hesitation, the silent apology in her eyes. But I was too broken to notice it clearly. My thoughts were consumed by betrayal, humiliation, and the sharp, sour taste of confusion. I don't understand why she couldn't say it herself, I muttered to myself at my desk. She didn't want to hurt you, my friend whispered across the cubicle wall. But this hurts more, I said. I wanted honesty, not this. By evening, the office had emptied. I stayed behind, staring at the empty hallway, feeling the weight of everything collapse on me. I replayed every interaction, every moment I had cherished, trying to find the signs I had missed. Was there a single hint that she wasn't genuine? A clue that she would never confront me? I couldn't find one. Only the betrayal, stark and clear, remained. I clenched my fist. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I sat silently, letting the ache sink in. The breaking point had arrived, not with harsh words, not with anger, but with the simple truth. She had sent someone else to reject me. I remembered my best friend's warnings. Patience doesn't always pay off. Silence doesn't always protect you. And sometimes the person you care about the most isn't capable of meeting you halfway. I felt the first stirrings of something new, a sharp, bitter clarity. My trust had been broken, but my self-awareness had awakened. I realized that if I wanted peace, if I wanted to respect myself, I could not stay in this silent, painful limbo. Her actions had forced me to see everything differently. She had not only rejected me but had done so in a way that left me humiliated, confused, and heartbroken. I felt the slow, gnawing pain of betrayal settle deep inside me, a pain that would not easily fade. I can't let this define me, I whispered to the empty office. I won't let it. For the first time in months, I made a decision. I would confront this not with anger but with honesty. Not with bitterness, but with the clarity of someone who had been blindsided and would no longer be passive. I didn't yet know how or when. I didn't know what words would come out or what consequences would follow. But I knew one thing: silence was no longer an option. The day ended with me sitting at my desk, staring at the dim office lights, feeling hollow, hurt, and strangely alive. The betrayal had shattered my calm, my hope, and my illusions. But it had also awakened a determination I hadn't known I possessed. Tomorrow I would face her. Tomorrow I would decide what I was willing to accept and what I would no longer allow. And in that quiet, lonely office, I realized heartbreak had begun. But so had the first step toward reclaiming myself. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened the day before. Every corner of the office felt heavier, every passing glance sharper. I kept replaying her words, or rather her friend's words. I wanted clarity even if it hurt, so I decided to confront her. I found her near the stairwell, her back turned as she adjusted some papers. "Can we talk?" I asked quietly. She jumped slightly and turned to face me. "Sure," she said, forcing a smile. I need to understand something," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why did you have her tell me I should stop hoping? Why couldn't you say it yourself?" Her smile faltered and she looked down. "I didn't want it to get awkward," she admitted softly. "I thought maybe it would be easier this way." "Easier?" I repeated, my throat tight. "Easier for who? For you?" She hesitated, then whispered, "For both of us." I didn't know how to face it. "I didn't want to hurt you." "I feel disposable," I said, my voice breaking despite my attempt to stay calm. Like I didn't matter enough for honesty. She flinched, guilt flashing in her eyes. "I never wanted you to feel that way," she said. "I just didn't know what else to do." I wanted to shout, to demand more than her whispered excuses. But I stayed silent, letting the hurt sink in. Her words cut deeper than any outright rejection could have. "I thought I understood people," I muttered. "I thought respect and patience mattered." "They do," she said quickly. "They really do. But sometimes even the best intentions," her voice trailed off. I didn't answer. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there with her guilt. I felt the weight of betrayal press down on me, heavy and relentless. Not just the betrayal of rejection, but the betrayal of trust, of belief, of the quiet love I had nurtured in silence. Later, her friend started appearing around me more often. She would smile softly, glance at me with an almost apologetic look, and ask small questions about my day. "You're quiet today," she said one morning, setting a cup of coffee beside me. "Just thinking," I replied. "About her?" she asked gently. I froze. I didn't know how much to reveal. "Yes," I admitted finally. She nodded, not pressing further. "I didn't want to interfere," she said softly. I couldn't watch you get hurt." Her words, her tone, the way she lingered nearby, it confused me. I felt the sting of betrayal again, yet a small, impossible warmth crept in. Days passed, and each time we spoke, I noticed subtle things. The way she hesitated before answering, the small sighs she tried to hide, the quick smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was as if she carried her own guilt, her own pain, and somehow it was tied to me. One afternoon, as we shared a quiet moment by the coffee machine, she said, "I've always liked honesty. I just didn't know how to be honest about my own feelings." I stared at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She looked down, twisting her fingers together. "I mean, I've always cared about you. More than I should have. But I couldn't tell you, not when she paused, almost catching herself. "Not when everything was so complicated." My heart stopped. I couldn't process it. Could it be true? The girl I thought had betrayed me, the friend I never noticed, she liked me? "You like me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes," she admitted, finally meeting my eyes. But I couldn't say it. I tried to protect both of us. I thought keeping quiet would be easier. I was wrong. I leaned back, gripping the edge of the counter. My mind raced. This revelation didn't undo the hurt. It only tangled everything more tightly. I remembered flashes of moments I had overlooked. The way her friend always seemed concerned, the subtle encouragements, the lingering glances I had dismissed. All those small signs now screamed their truth. I felt trapped between anger, confusion, and exhaustion. Could I trust her? Could I forgive her? Could I even understand what had happened? She watched me silently, her expression open and vulnerable. "I know this is hard," she said softly. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just wanted you to know the truth." I took a deep breath. "The truth hurts more than the lies," I said finally. "I know," she whispered. I walked away, trying to sort my emotions. Betrayal wasn't just about rejection, it was about deception even if it was meant to protect. And now, with this new revelation, the lines between hurt and hope blurred into something I couldn't name. Her friend's presence lingered in my mind. Every word she had spoken carried weight, and the warmth I hadn't expected began to creep into the cold ache of disappointment. I found myself recalling moments I had shared with both of them, trying to make sense of every glance, every word, every unspoken message. One evening as I left the office, I caught sight of her friend waiting near the stairs. "Hey," she said softly. "Hi," I replied cautiously. "I didn't want yesterday to be the last thing you remembered," she said. I paused. "What do you mean?" She looked at me, vulnerability etched across her features. "I wanted you to know that I care in my own way. I just didn't know how to say it before." I stared at her, the exhaustion of the past few days pressing down on me. Anger, confusion, heartbreak, they all mingled with something new, something impossible. A faint flicker of understanding, maybe even trust, struggling to rise. I don't know what to say," I admitted. "You don't have to," she replied. "Just don't let my mistakes define what you feel about yourself. You're more than this pain." Her words struck me with an unexpected force. I wanted to believe them, but the betrayal was still fresh, raw, and unhealed. Could I trust someone who had been caught in such a complicated web of silence and fear? I thought back to her confession, to the way she had admitted she couldn't face me herself. It wasn't just betrayal, it was the failure of communication, the weight of unspoken feelings, the consequences of trying to protect hearts by hiding the truth. And yet, in her friend's quiet presence, in the moments she lingered with care and regret, I began to see the possibility of redemption. Not for her, not fully yet, but for myself, to navigate this emotional labyrinth without losing myself entirely. I remembered my best friend's warning. Patience and silence don't always protect you. Sometimes they leave you vulnerable. But facing the truth, no matter how messy, gave you control back. I realized that I had a choice. I could walk away, carry the hurt in silence, and let the betrayal define me. Or I could confront the truth, embrace the confusion, and navigate the tangled emotions that lay before me. For the first time in days, I felt the faintest clarity. The situation was messy, yes. Betrayal stung. Confusion clouded my thoughts. But I had agency. I could decide how I would respond, what I would accept, and what I would no longer tolerate. Her friend waited quietly, her presence steady and gentle. I took a deep breath and let myself meet her eyes. There were no answers yet. No resolution. Only the raw, unfiltered truth, and the first glimmer of understanding that not everything was as simple as it seemed. I need time," I said finally. "I know," she whispered. "Take all the time you need." And as I walked away, leaving her there in the fading light of the office, I understood something profound. Betrayal was not just about rejection. It was about discovering the truth hidden beneath the surface, facing it, and deciding how to move forward. I didn't have the answers yet. I didn't know who I could trust or what the future held. But I felt the stirrings of resolve, the first real spark of agency in a situation that had felt entirely beyond my control. The betrayal had deepened, but so had my understanding. And for the first time in days, I felt the possibility of reclaiming myself from the chaos of hurt, confusion, and impossibility. I stopped chasing explanations. I stopped trying to read her or her friend, stopped overthinking every glance, every word, every tiny movement. I decided silence was mine to control, that my attention was mine, that my energy was mine. The first morning I didn't reply to her messages, I felt a panic rise. My fingers hovered over the phone, ready to type something meaningless just to hear from her. But I didn't. I let it sit. I let the silence stretch. "Why aren't you replying?" my best friend asked over coffee. "I'm not going to," I said, calm though my stomach still fluttered. "Not going to what?" "Not going to chase something that's not mine," I replied. He raised an eyebrow. "That's new for you." "I know," I admitted. "Feels strange but good. Feels like taking my own power back." I focused on work. Every task, every email, every small interaction became a way to anchor myself. If my mind drifted toward her friend, toward the humiliation, I channeled it into efficiency. My boss noticed, complimented me, and I let it boost me, not to impress her, not to get attention, but to remind myself I was capable, valuable. "Hey, you're on fire today," my colleague said, noticing my focus. "Just concentrating," I said, smiling faintly. Even small accomplishments felt monumental. I realized I hadn't felt this grounded in months. At night I went for runs. I felt my lungs burn, my legs ache, and my thoughts start to clear. The world was loud, the streets empty, and my heartbeat became a rhythm I could follow, not a warning I could not control. One evening, after a long run, I stopped at a small cafe, grabbing a bottle of water and a seat near the window. An older man at the next table looked up and smiled. "You look like someone carrying too much," he said. I laughed softly. "Maybe I am." "Sometimes," he said, "you need to put down what doesn't belong to you to see what really matters." I nodded slowly. "I think I'm learning that." "You look like a fighter," he said. "Someone who's realizing they don't need to prove themselves to anyone." I smiled faintly, surprised by the clarity his words brought. For the first time, I felt my worth wasn't tied to her friend, or to anyone's opinion. It was mine. Days turned into weeks. I stopped checking her messages. I stopped lingering in places I thought she might be. I stopped reacting to her presence. And slowly I noticed the shift. She noticed it too. She looked uneasy now when I passed her in the hallway. She would glance at me quickly, then look away. I sensed tension, but it didn't reach me the way it once did. I felt invisible and, somehow, powerful in that invisibility. Her friend kept a careful distance too. I could see the struggle in her eyes, guilt, fear, something she hadn't been able to show before. One quiet afternoon she approached me in the stairwell. Her hands trembled slightly, and her voice was barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" she asked. I looked at her, calm, steady. "Yes," I said. I never wanted to reject you," she said quickly, almost in panic. "I didn't mean what happened before. I was protecting my feelings. I was scared. I didn't know how to say it without ruining everything." I listened, letting her words wash over me. I could see the raw honesty, the emotion she had tried to hide for so long. She hesitated. "I cared about you more than I should have. I thought keeping quiet was safer. I didn't want to hurt you or myself." I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence stretch. My mind raced, but my heart was quiet. "You don't have to forgive me," she said, tears in her eyes. I couldn't stay quiet anymore." I met her gaze steadily. "I hear you," I said finally. She looked at me, hope and fear mingling in her expression. "Does that mean anything? Can we?" I shook my head slightly. "I'm not giving you an answer," I said softly. "Not right now." Her lips pressed together, a mixture of relief and disappointment on her face. "I understand," she whispered. And in that moment I realized something important. I wasn't reacting anymore. I wasn't desperate for validation, for forgiveness, for attention. I was deciding, on my terms, in my own time. The rest of the office day passed quietly. I focused on work and she moved around me cautiously. I didn't invite conversation, but I didn't avoid it completely. I simply existed in my own space, a space I was reclaiming for myself. That evening my mother called. Her voice was warm and concerned. "You sound different, son," she said. "Calmer." "I'm learning to take care of myself," I admitted. "That's good," she said. "Sometimes the world doesn't give us what we want. But you can always give it to yourself." "I know," I said softly, letting her words sink in. "You deserve to be seen, heard, and valued," she continued. "Don't let anyone else's mistakes make you doubt that." I smiled faintly. "I'm starting to understand that." We talked a little longer about nothing important and everything important at the same time. When I hung up, I felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The next morning, I returned to the office with a quiet confidence. Her presence no longer triggered panic or longing. Her friend glanced at me, guilt still evident, but no longer intimidating. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning," I replied calmly. She paused. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything before." I nodded. "I know." Her eyes searched mine as if hoping for a different reaction. But I remained neutral, centered, in control. The power had shifted. I was no longer at the mercy of their choices or actions. Later that day she lingered near my desk again. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. Her expression softened. "Do you understand why I did it?" "Yes," I said. "I understand." "And you?" she asked, hesitant. I shook my head slightly. "I don't owe you an answer. Not yet. Not now." She swallowed hard, then nodded. "Okay." I turned back to my work, feeling a strange calm. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to the chaos around me. I wasn't trying to fix, to chase, to beg. I was choosing myself. In the silence, I reflected on the weeks that had passed. The heartbreak, the confusion, the betrayals, and the tiny, surprising moments of clarity. I realized I had grown. I had reclaimed something I didn't even know I had lost. My dignity. Even when my crush passed by my desk, her expression wary and uncertain, I didn't falter. I didn't glance too long. I didn't give away the tension or longing that used to define me. I simply existed, fully aware of my own value. Her friend lingered again, a faint look of remorse in her eyes. I didn't mean to make it complicated, she said softly. I know, I replied steady. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. I hope you find peace with everything. I already am, I said softly but firmly. And I was. The weeks of heartbreak, the weight of betrayal, the uncertainty, and the exhaustion, they had shaped me but they no longer defined me. I had chosen my own path, my own dignity, my own emotional strength. No one else's choices could dictate my value anymore. I had stopped reacting and I had started deciding. The first flicker of real control in months. I leaned back in my chair, letting the sunlight fall across my desk. The world kept moving around me. She and her friend were still there, still present, still complicated. But for the first time, I wasn't caught in their orbit. I was free. And in that freedom, I felt alive. I had chosen myself. I didn't chase her anymore. I didn't reply to her messages, didn't linger in places I thought she would be, didn't care if she noticed me, or if she didn't. I focused on work, my health, my routines, my quiet life. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to notice the shift around her. Rumors started circulating at work. Her ex had returned unexpectedly, only to leave again, creating whispers and confusion. People started noticing her anxious glances, her nervous energy. One morning she came up to me at the printer. Hey, she said, voice tight, avoiding eye contact. Hey, I replied calm. I need to talk, she said. Her hands fidgeted with a paper she held. Okay, I said, keeping my tone steady. What's on your mind? She looked at me, her eyes filled with something between desperation and regret. I think I made a mistake, she admitted. I didn't realize what I had until I lost it. I remained silent. Not because I didn't hear her, but because I had nothing to give her anymore. The power had shifted, and I wasn't the same person she had tried to control with half-truths and avoidance. I should have been honest, she continued, voice shaking slightly. I should have said things myself instead of sending her. I see that now. I nodded slowly. I understand, I said evenly. Her eyes widened. You understand? Yes, I said again. I understand what happened. And I also understand what I deserve. There was a pause. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. Her desperation was palpable, but I was calm. I didn't need to respond, didn't need to give her validation. I had chosen myself and nothing she could say would change that. You don't feel anything? She asked finally. I feel, I said, voice steady, but I'm not reacting. I've learned the difference. Her friend appeared nearby, silently watching the exchange. I noticed her respect the space I had claimed, keeping a careful distance. She didn't intervene, didn't offer excuses. She simply observed, giving me the room to be fully myself. You really don't care? My crush pressed, frustration rising in her tone. I care about myself, I said calmly. That's what matters now. Her hands trembled slightly. I didn't see it before, she admitted, almost whispering. I didn't know what I had, and now. Now you know, I said softly. But knowing doesn't change what already happened. And it doesn't give you power over me. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I could see the realization dawning, the understanding that she had lost someone genuine, someone who had cared deeply, someone who had given patience and respect and received only avoidance in return. You, she said finally, voice breaking. You were always honest. And I don't need to hear it, I said firmly. She swallowed hard, looking at me as if she were trying to reach me, to reclaim some fragment of what she had let slip away. But I didn't flinch. I didn't give in. I simply remained steady, grounded, aware of my own value. Over the next few days, I noticed subtle shifts. The office chatter about her ex, the rumors, the little awkward exchanges, all seemed to weigh on her. She looked uneasy, restless. And every time she tried to speak to me, I responded with calm detachment, the quiet strength I had cultivated over weeks of self-focus. One afternoon, she approached me at my desk, nervously twisting a pen in her hands. Can we talk somewhere private? She asked. I'm listening, I said. She hesitated. I want you to know that I regret everything. I should have been honest from the start. I should have faced you myself. I see that now. I hear you, I replied evenly. And I acknowledge your words. But they don't change the past. Her lips pressed together. You're different, she said softly, almost in awe. Calm, steady, you don't react the way you used to. It's unsettling. I smiled faintly. It's called choosing myself. She looked down, shame flickering across her face. I didn't realize. You didn't, I said gently. And now you do. That's enough. Her friend appeared again, standing a few feet away. She gave me a small, knowing nod, then stepped back. She understood I didn't need anyone else's approval, not now. She had been part of the past, part of the confusion, but she respected the boundaries I had claimed. You don't want to give me a chance? My crush asked finally, desperation clear. I don't need to give you anything, I said calmly. I've taken what matters most, myself, my dignity, my choice. She looked shocked, frustrated, but there was also recognition in her eyes. She understood for the first time that I was no longer reacting to her actions. I had decided. I had authority over my own life, my own emotions, my own value. You're not angry, she said finally, voice trembling. I'm not, I said. I'm aware. I'm focused. I'm in control. And I was. In the days that followed, she grew uneasy, her presence around me cautious. She glanced, waited, lingered, but I didn't chase, I didn't react, I didn't give in. She realized she had lost someone who had been genuine, patient, and honest. And the truth worked quietly, invisibly, without drama or revenge. Karma had done its part. I watched it unfold without interference. Her ex returned briefly, only to leave again. Rumors circulated, and she felt the sting of her own choices. She tried to approach me several times, each attempt met with calm composure. Each time I responded with measured words, never letting desperation creep into my voice. You really don't care? She asked one afternoon, voice tight. I care about myself, I repeated. That's what matters. Her friend stayed nearby, quietly observing. She had seen the transformation, the quiet power I had reclaimed. She had seen the respect I had for myself and for my own boundaries. She understood she could not insert herself, not now, not ever, into the space I had claimed. You're different, my crush admitted again, voice low. I didn't realize. You didn't, I said softly. And that's the consequence. She looked at me, desperate, almost pleading, but I didn't flinch. I didn't respond with need or longing. I simply stood steady, anchored in my own worth. Over the next week, she became quieter, more hesitant. Her gestures, once confident, now faltered. I observed without judgment, without interference. Karma worked quietly, invisibly, and I let it take its course. You, she said finally one afternoon, voice breaking. You were always honest. I don't need to hear it, I said firmly. Her lips pressed together, shame and regret flickering across her face. She understood, finally, that she had lost someone genuine. And I no longer craved her validation, her attention, her forgiveness. You're calm, she said softly, almost in awe. You're not reacting. I'm deciding, I said. There's a difference. Her friend nodded subtly from a distance, respect in her eyes. She understood I had taken back control. I had reclaimed my own power, my own emotional space, my own dignity. I realized as I looked at them both, that I had moved past heartbreak into clarity. I had watched karma unfold quietly. I had observed the consequences without interfering. I had chosen myself, and in doing so, I had found peace. The rest of the day passed quietly. The office hummed around me, normal and unremarkable, yet I felt stronger, lighter. I didn't chase explanations, I didn't react, and I didn't need validation. I had authority over my own emotions. I had reclaimed my worth. Her presence, her friend's presence, even her attempts at connection, they no longer threatened my balance. I had chosen myself. And that choice changed everything. For the first time in months, I felt truly free. I had let the truth, not my anger, guide the outcome. Karma didn't knock. It walked in silently, subtly, and I witnessed it without interference. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need validation. I only needed myself. And I had me. I knew it was time. Time to face them both, one last time, and close the chapter that had consumed me for weeks. I felt the tension in my chest, but it was tempered by the calm I had been cultivating. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about validation. It was about closure. I decided to see her first, the one who had caused so much confusion, my original crush. She was waiting near the lobby, fidgeting, nervous energy radiating from her. Hi, she said, voice tentative. Hi, I replied calmly, meeting her gaze. She swallowed. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I nodded slowly. I know. I've heard it before, but I understand now. You forgive me? She asked, hope flickering in her eyes. I forgive, I said evenly. But that doesn't mean I forget. And it doesn't mean I'm yours to claim again. Her lips pressed together. I see. You don't need to explain anymore, I said gently. I needed clarity. I have it. And that's enough. Her shoulders slumped slightly. I lost someone genuine, didn't I? You did, I said softly. But losing me doesn't define your worth. It defines a choice you made, and now you have to live with it. She flinched slightly, guilt and regret in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. I know, I said. But you did. And I've accepted that. I'm moving forward, not backward. She swallowed hard. Will you ever? No, I said firmly but kindly. Not right now. Not yet. I choose growth. I choose myself. And I hope one day you understand that my absence isn't hatred, it's self-respect. Her eyes widened slightly as if realizing the truth of my words. I think I do, she admitted. I smiled faintly. Good. That's all I needed you to understand. She nodded slowly, tears glimmering but restrained. Thank you, she whispered. You're welcome, I said. Take care of yourself. With that, I turned and walked away. No lingering glances, no second chances, no need for validation. Just the quiet strength of someone who had reclaimed himself. Later, I sought out her friend, the one who had carried the weight of the truth, the one who had been honest about her feelings but too afraid to act sooner. She was sitting in the park, hands clasped together, waiting. Hey, she said softly as I approached. Hey, I replied, sitting beside her. She hesitated. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know how to handle it before. I know, I said calmly. You were protecting yourself just like I was learning to protect myself. Her eyes searched mine. Do you hate me? No, I said. I don't hate you. I understand. And I respect your honesty now. That's more than I had before. She nodded slowly. I was scared, she admitted. I liked you and I didn't want to lose you, but I also didn't want to make it awkward. I thought keeping quiet would help. And it didn't, I said gently. But I don't blame you for trying. I blame no one now. I've realized that what matters is my choice, not anyone else's fear. Her hands twitched nervously. So you're not upset? I'm past upset, I said. I'm focused. I'm calm. I've chosen myself. That's what counts. You really are different now, she said softly. You're strong. I didn't realize how much I underestimated you. I smiled faintly. I underestimated myself for a long time. But I've learned that my value doesn't depend on anyone else recognizing it. She nodded. I am glad you found that. Thank you, I said. And thank you for your honesty finally. That meant more than you know. We sat in silence for a moment, letting the truth settle. The awkward tension had dissolved, replaced by mutual respect. She hadn't gotten what she wanted, and I hadn't needed to fight for it. We were simply aligned with our own truths. I hope you find someone who sees you, she said quietly. And I hope you find someone who values you too, I replied. We smiled faintly at each other. No lingering regrets, no false hope, just acknowledgement of the roles we had played in each other's lives and the lessons we had learned. Later that evening, I reflected on everything. The rejection, the betrayal, the heartbreak. It hadn't broken me. It had shaped me. It had forced me to confront myself, my value, my boundaries, and my emotional strength. I realized something profound. I was never rejected because I wasn't enough. I was rejected because I was too real, too honest, too unwilling to compromise my dignity for someone else's comfort. I thought back to her, the original crush who had avoided confrontation. She had taught me patience, endurance, and the limits of silent devotion. Her friend had taught me the power of honesty, courage, and the importance of speaking your truth, even if delayed. And I had learned, more than anything, that self-respect is priceless. That growth cannot be rushed or demanded. That emotional maturity comes from standing firm, choosing yourself, and letting truth unfold naturally. I walked through the city streets that evening, the wind brushing against my face. The chaos of my emotions had settled into a quiet clarity. I didn't need anyone's validation. I didn't need anyone's love to define me. I was enough on my own. As I passed the cafe where I had spoken with a stranger weeks ago, I remembered his words. Sometimes you need to put down what doesn't belong to you to see what really matters. I smiled to myself. He had been right. And now I could finally see what mattered. Me. My growth. My peace. My dignity. My choice. I thought back to all the moments I had clung to hope, to patience, to silent admiration. They were lessons now, not regrets. I had survived rejection, betrayal, and heartbreak, not by avoiding it but by facing it, by choosing myself, and by refusing to let anyone else dictate my worth. I walked past familiar streets, past the places that once held tension, longing, and confusion. I felt nothing but calm, nothing but clarity. I had closed the chapter, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with understanding and self-respect. And in that clarity I finally understood the truth. I was never easy to replace. Not because I was perfect, not because I was flawless, but because I was real, honest, strong, uncompromising in my worth. I didn't need to turn back, didn't need to look for them, didn't need to hope for validation. I had chosen growth. I had chosen myself. And that choice was more powerful than any love or heartbreak could ever be. The city lights flickered as I walked home, my steps steady and sure. I had learned, I had grown, I had survived. And I had reclaimed the most important thing of all, my own dignity, my own peace, my own life. I paused on the bridge, looking at the river below. The water flowed steadily, unstoppable, just like time and change. I felt the weight of the past lift from my shoulders. I had forgiven without forgetting, acknowledged without compromising, moved forward without regret. For the first time in months I felt truly free. I turned and walked away from the bridge, away from the memories, away from the confusion and the heartbreak. I walked forward, calm, collected, strong. Not broken. Not desperate. Not seeking anyone's approval. I was enough. And I knew deep down that I always had been. The story of heartbreak, betrayal, and lost love had ended, not with bitterness, not with regret, but with strength, clarity, and the knowledge that I was never easy to replace. I had chosen myself. And that was enough.